Me and Bernie are just walking around today. We're out in the nature park. This is a great place for deep thoughts. Deep thoughts with Bernie and Jesse. There is this part of being human called rumination. And what that is ultimately getting in this feedback loop of overthinking. And you know that this rumination really isn't solving any problems, but you keep doing it. In fact, you can't stop doing it. So why is that? Today, I want to thank MagicMind for sponsoring this video. More on MagicMind in just a minute. So what is rumination? So rumination is that overthinking. Sometimes we think about Socrates, who said that a life unexamined is not worth living. And that sounds really awesome and good, but there sometimes comes a point when we have to stop examining and we have to start living, right? And that can be very difficult if you are stuck in the rumination cycle. So what happens? What is it that's causing rumination? So when you're ruminating, this is because of a disconnection between your conscious and your unconscious selves. You have the conscious ability to run simulations, to think about the future, to think about the past. These are things that your unconscious self does not have the ability to do. However, when you start thinking about these things, the unconscious part of you becomes aware and it says, okay, there's a problem. I get that. We need to solve that problem now. And so your unconscious doesn't understand that, for instance, there's nothing I can do about the dumb thing I said yesterday. There's nothing I can do about it. And your unconscious doesn't understand there's nothing I can do about, whatever my boss is going to say tomorrow whenever I go to work and I have to tell him I'm not done with the project or whatever, right? But it does know, well, if there's a problem, I need to kick into gear and help solve this problem. So the unconscious part of you starts to give you dopamine. So dopamine is a reward chemical that is ultimately there to encourage you to take action, to encourage you especially to take action to solve problems, to explore new areas, and hopefully to find the answer to whatever's bugging you. Well, this causes disconnection. This causes a problem. This causes rumination, because you see what's happening is your conscious self knows that there's nothing I can do about this issue. The unconscious self says, let's solve it right now. And it feeds you dopamine to continue to think about it, to start thinking about different ways you could have handled that situation, to start thinking about different ways you could handle it in the future. It's all about, let's do it this way. It says, conscious me, use that amazing conscious ability that you have to come up with solutions, and I will keep giving you dopamine to help to encourage you do that. And there you are laying in bed. There you are laying in bed and you can't stop ruminating. And this is an issue that a lot of people face. This is something that I think all human beings face. Now, how do we solve that problem? What do we do when we're suffering from this human condition, which is rumination? Well, I'll tell you about that in just a second. First, I want to thank MagicMind for sponsoring this video. MagicMind is an all-natural nootropic blend that I use every single day. It boosts the immune system and it improves the ability to focus. I use it every single day, but it only takes about 3 days to get its full effect. However, in about 20 minutes after taking the shot, you'll start to notice you can focus, you can relax. It's got an awesome blend and they're all natural, no side effects, good stuff. Check out the link below. Now, how do we get through this? Well, there's two main methods. In the world of breathwork, we would say, okay, what you need to do is break that dopamine cycle, that dopamine feedback loop. If you've read my book, A Practical Guide to Breathwork, you know many of my recommendations. If you haven't, go read that book right now. But I'll tell you one right now. One is that ultimately you need, in the moment, the best thing you can do is you can try to break through that dopamine feedback loop. So one way you can do that, if it's the daytime, is do breath work that helps to that helps to calm the mind. Now, this is typically done with superventilation style breath work, because when we superventilate, we can actually cause some of the parts of our conscious mind to quiet down. And this is really good for rumination. It can break that cycle. And if you're doing that, plus you're taking active steps to start thinking about something else, because you can't come back, you can't just finish the breath work isn't actually curing you. It's just a tool to stop the cycle so you can start thinking about other things. So start thinking about something else as you do the breath work, and that can many times be a really good quick fix for this issue. In the middle of the night, there are techniques that you can use as well. One that I like to use is the cadence of bliss, also known as 4-7-8 breathing. Again, if you want to know more about these things, they're in my book. Or they're also on the course if you take a look at the Language of Breath course below. Now, that's the short-term answer. And you're going to get maybe 50-50 success on that. Yes, all the gurus out there are going to be like, you just do the breathing and then you're fine and you'll never have a problem and all this stuff. But the reality is it's about 50-50. I'm just going to be straight with you. Now, the other thing you can do, which is the best thing for the long term, which is ultimately going to help you avoid having these issues altogether, and that is getting to know your unconscious self. That is the ultimate goal of the Language of Breath philosophy. Learning to have a positive relationship between the conscious and the unconscious parts of yourself. Because it's those two parts that when they're kind of not in alignment, it's those two parts that are causing you to have the issue, right? And so what we want to try to do is form a better relationship so that they can work together, as opposed to having these weird arguments. You know, the conscious self is like, I can't do anything about this issue. The unconscious you is saying, do something now, right? And so this is the goal of the Language of Breath program. The whole Language of Breath philosophy revolves around that. And for those of you who have taken the course, you know that. For those of you who have not, take the course. It's a 7-week course that guides you through all of the processes so you can learn to listen better to that unconscious part of yourself. What happens is we let that unconscious part of ourselves be completely unheard. And we do this so much that the only thing that it feels like it can do is things that cause us anxiety. It's basically, we're failing to hear its whispers, so it has to scream. Bernie has no such problems. He sleeps pretty easily. He doesn't have a lot of worries in life. Maybe the cat next door. Overall, the goal is to form a better relationship between the conscious and the unconscious self. A lot of breath work talks about techniques, talks about breathing, but it fails to discuss the other half of breath work, and that is learning to hear and decipher the voice of the unconscious you. You cannot control this. And nobody likes to hear that, but that is the truth. This is not something you can consciously will. You have to work with yourself. You have to form a team with yourself. And that means learning to hear, and that means learning how to speak in a language that your unconscious self will listen to. That is the underlying biology of rumination. And there is my best advice to you if you're suffering from rumination, which we all do from time to time. Guys, thanks so much for watching. Check me out on Instagram, on Facebook, even Blue Sky. I'm on Blue Sky now. Thanks so much again. Please like and subscribe. And don't forget to go out there and be kind to one another.